Welcome friends to our 10th lecture in this NKB series of relativistic and relativistic quantum mechanics. In this lecture, I think first we try to understand that how the negative energy of the free particle, relativistic free particle can be understood. If you have realized that both approaches, either Kg equation or the Dirac equation, they both permit and they both allows the negative energy of a free particle. This is something which is not understood from the non-relativistic case, because in non-relativistic case the energy, particularly the kinetic energy, can't be negative, because all the terms involving in it are either square or they are the positive only. So the concepts of negative energy is the major outcome of the theory of relativity when combined with the quantum mechanics. And therefore its understanding and the proper attention is required to get the familiarity with the negative energy. So this particular lecture is devoted to understand the concepts of negative energy. That is allowed, either you treat it the particle where the space and time coordinates are written as a second order differentiation or the first order differentiation. Both allows the negative energy states. Simply by neglecting negative energy states, by assuming that it is physically not acceptable condition, can it lead to the correct scenario? Or even if you neglect it in the beginning and later on it enters the description. So these are the different aspects of understanding the negative energy state that we try to understand. And we will see that how beautifully that Dirac is come up with a very brilliant idea of dealing with the negative energy state. So this entire lecture is basically devoted to that, and definitely you will enjoy the brilliance of Dirac. So welcome you all for this 10th lecture. So friends, I think we can resume from what we did last time. If you remember, last time we were able to derive the four solutions and the four components of the wave function describing a Dirac particle, and of which the two components who remain unaltered even in the case of a non-relativistic limit, which we call as the large component, whereas the other two components who become zero in the non-relativistic limit are the small components. This description of a free particle, Dirac free particle, has in fact given us enough hint that this 1, 0 or 0, 1 are identical to the spin wave function, Pauli's spin wave functions alpha and beta, as alpha commonly known as a spin up wave function, whereas beta is your spin down wave function. So the presence of this 1, 0 component or alpha beta in case of u1, u2, u3, u4, ultimately if you remember that your psi was written as ui or u1, u2, u3, u4, and then you have exponential phase factor. So this presence of 1, 0 and 0, 1 indicates that the Dirac equation inherently includes the concepts of spin. But that point we will see slightly later in the topic of Dirac's spin theory, or how spin comes automatically from the Dirac equation. But before we go to that part, let me go to the expression for the energy. We know that both Kg equation and the Dirac equation admits your energy to be plus or minus. So let me start with this, and based on that we will describe the significance, physical significance of the negative energy state. So today I think what we do is we first find out the understanding regarding negative energy states, because this is not observed for the non-relativistic case. Non-relativistic particle has a kinetic energy is either always greater than 0 or at the most it is 0. So I start writing the expression for the energy, kinetic energy of a relativistic free particle. So this E plus, which we had written as C square P square plus m0 square C raised to 4 raised to half, and if you use the another solution, that is E minus, it is the same but with the opposite sign. So this we have observed that the kinetic energy of a relativistically high relativistic Dirac particle can be plus or minus. And now this negative energy is to be explained. So we start describing the understanding with this negative energy states, and what is the justification, what is the physical interpretation Dirac has given, that we try to see first. And towards the end of this topic, we will also try to understand the significance of this energy states, negative energy states, in context to the Kg equation that we will see. So I start with the non-relativistic limit. Say in the non-relativistic limit, where your linear momentum P is very small quantity, then in that case E plus and E minus, this first term C square P square becomes 0, and you are left with square root of this term, that is m0 C square and m0 C square, but plus or minus. So in this limit, your E plus, let me reserve this side for figure, E plus will be exactly plus m0 square, sorry, m0 C square. Correct? Whereas your E minus will be by amount the same, but it is with negative energy. So obviously this is plus, this is minus, so in between you can think that there is a zero level. This is something very interesting, and unlike to our expectation, that in the non-relativistic limit, when the particle is at rest, or it's moving with a very small velocity compared to its rest mass energy, then your energy spectrum of the free particle is divided into two parts. One with a negative m0 c square energy and another with plus. So there is a gap even for a same particle under the same condition with the same small value of linear momentum. The energy is having a gap, and this gap we can, if we write as a delta E, then it comes out to be 2m0 c square. Just as to estimate it, for example, if I consider the case of electron, correct? Let us assume the electron is at rest. So its linear momentum P we can think as a 0, then the energy levels or the energy spectrum for such an electron can have a gap of 2m0 c square. And if I put the rest mass of electron and the value of c, the speed of light in vacuum, and if I calculate this, then it comes out to be this delta E should be of the order of MeV. So it is a mega electron volt of energy gap that we observe even for the case of an electron. So this is to be explained, that what is the physical understanding behind this energy gap. In that, from this limit, if I just go on putting the value of P, if I just increase the P, so it is as it increases, so P square term will increase. So total energy with negative sign just go on increasing. Here for E plus, it is just go on increasing. So what happens as you increase your P, the energy level goes to, and there is, as such, there is no upper limit for linear momentum. So we can go to the highest possible value of the linear momentum, which takes in principle E plus to infinite. Similar thing can happen when you just go on putting the higher and higher values of linear momentum in this expression. It takes you to the minus infinite. So there is no bottom here. And if there is no bottom, means I can say that there is no binding from the below. So it is unbounded state from below. And this is a very serious implications. For example, your system has some energy. Let us say your particle is somewhere here having energy this much. And we know that it's a natural justification that any system tries to go to the lower energy states. So obviously it will not remain here because all below negative states, lower energy states are available to it. So obviously instead of staying here, it will go to this state, for example. But still few states are possible, more states are possible below, so it just go on. So where it will end up, this system, this particle can go to minus infinite state, which is physically not justifiable. Your stable structure of a system will no longer be possible. For example, your electron in a hydrogen atom has infinitely large attractive force at the nucleus. So one can think that this electron can go closer and closer and closer to the positively charged nucleus, and it ends up with no hydrogen atom because now the entire structure of hydrogen atom collapses. So how this difficulty, this issue of the negative energy states can be resolved? What is the physical understanding that we can do? As an impatient a person like me who thinks that why not to consider to eliminate these negative energy states from our discussion? Like, it's a mathematics. Ultimately the mathematics may give the plus and minus both results, but the physically acceptable solutions may be only with the positive energies. So at the first glance we may do this exercise, that forget about this negative energy states and assume that the system has only positive energy states. So as a first remedy to this problem of collapse of the system with the negative energy states, what we think that we start with only positive energy states. Correct? So we do this thing, but don't forget, we are describing entire system which is quantum mechanical in nature. And in quantum mechanics, the states are defined in the Hilbert space. And the information about a system is completely available from those states which are the basis. So basically, when you are defining your quantum mechanical system in a Hilbert space, you need to know what are the bases. And if you start with only positive energy states, assuming that negative energy states are artificial, mathematically originated, not having any physical significance, even then, when you start with positive energy states, slowly, stepwise, when you just go on including all the states who are linearly independent, can work as a basis, then you will find that automatically negative energy states also come into the picture. They will also contribute to this. So even when we start with the positive energy states, but we will end up with both that positive as well as negative energy states. So it is not possible that you can simply get rid of negative energy states by ignoring them. The quantum mechanical evolution of the calculating the states quantum basis, they require the negative energy states also. So this simple way of taking care of negative energy states by assuming only positive energy states is not working well. So this is not possible to employ because negative energy states are anyway comes into the picture again. So this is not possible. Then we can think something like that. And another issue related with this, let us say that your system is somewhere here. It is having positive energy states, but due to even a slight perturbation, either it can be electrical in nature or it can be mechanical in nature, due to some imbalance, some perturbation causes this energy state or this system to go to lower energy states. It may be in the equilibrium for a moment, it's in a transient equilibrium, but the smallest possible perturbation can cause it to go to the lower energy states. So what happens even when your system is in the positive energy state, I have shown here, but due to any slight perturbation, it is possible that it can finally be found at the lowest negative energy states. And don't forget, the lowest energy states allowed negative state is at minus infinite. So finally you can find your system is no longer in the positive energy states, it is in the negative or the lowest negative energy states, which is infinite. This is of course a very bigger and serious issue with this negative energies of the free particles in the relativistic case, either Klein-Gordon or the Dirac. Okay? So these are the few issues which need some special attention, and therefore this negative energy states which cannot be simply get rid of by ignoring them, or it has a serious hindrance that the smallest perturbation can drag the system from positive states to the minus infinite states. That I think is been discussed by Dirac in context to the particles having the spin. Don't forget, towards the end of the last topic, I have given, and we will in fact prove next time also, that the Dirac equation, Dirac free relativistic equation favors the spin to be a part of the equation. So spin is there, let us assume for a moment, and therefore now this negative energy states or the issues with negative energy states that we try to resolve in context to Dirac idea, including the concept of spin. So I go to the next paper and try to find the interpretation of this negative energy states given by the Dirac. So in fact, what we will see now, that how this Dirac idea can resolve this issues with the negative energy states. And for that, now we start writing the Dirac theory for this negative energy states. In fact, Dirac has used the idea of Pauli's. You know the Pauli's exclusion principle. And what it says that you cannot accommodate the two electron having the same quantum numbers. Correct? For example, Dirac theory admits or allows the spin also, as we have already seen in the last slide. So let us assume that the Dirac free particle which we are discussing is a spin half particle, half h cut. H cut is 1, so I am not writing. So we know that if you have an energy state, then according to Pauli's exclusion principle, based on the spin, can accommodate at the most only two particles, one with spin up and one with spin down. Right? So this actually in a way is not allowing the gathering of the particles. Pauli's exclusion principle says that fermions, they do not like to come, all of them come close enough to form a cluster. By nature, fermions, they try to repel each other, and only two particles, fermionic particles having at least one of the quantum number different, can stay together. So this idea is already prevailing, and based on this concepts, Fermi has rather Dirac has given a very beautiful idea. In fact, he redefined the concept of vacuum. What we say, when I say vacuum, then we understand that it is totally empty. So this totally empty condition or the state we call as a vacuum. There is nothing in it. Instead of that, what Dirac has said, that this vacuum or the lowest state, the ground state, is in fact totally filled. And it is totally filled by all negative energy particles. So if you just go back to this page, all this state which are having the negative energy, they are all filled, of course, following the Pauli's exclusion principle. So if I picturize this again, then my all energy states, if I show all energy states as a boxes, then all these energy states are completely filled. There is no space left to accommodate any one more particle. So all of them are completely filled, and this is totally against our common understanding about the vacuum states, which is we believe to be the totally empty, whereas Dirac has thought brilliantly that they are all fully filled. So no states empty. This redefinition of the vacuum has a very great implication. In fact, it seems very unconventional, but it has a very great implication. And if it is totally filled by all the particles having the negative energy state, that automatically says that if such a large number of states starting from say minus m0 c square up to infinite, such a large number of states when are filled by a large number of energy, negative energy particles, that means the number of particles included in this are practically infinite. They are infinite. So no need to say if you have a large number of particles, the degrees of freedom is also large. So the number of degrees of freedom is also very large. And such a thing, having the large number of degrees of freedom, is known as field. So automatically the concept of vacuum filled with negative energy particles, large number of particles, incorporates the concepts of field. So this field, vacuum, is now considered to be the field. It's not just the empty state. In fact, it is the fully filled state, and it is filled by such negative energy particles. Then obvious question comes that if it is totally filled, then why we are not able to see it? So he further assumes that of course they are totally filled, but they are in a sense passive, they are not observable. Not observable meaning that there is no physical quantity that you can measure for it. For example, you cannot measure the charge of such particles. You cannot measure even the field associated, electromagnetic field associated with it. So there is no way you can measure such number of particles. So this negative energy states are in a state which are not observable. Right? So he assumed this vacuum to be the completely filled state with a large number of negatively energy particles, but this negative energy particles are not observable. Then this in fact gives you the hint that a Y system can sustain, Y system does not collapse. Even if, for example, this negative energy state is somewhere, this system is somewhere here, though its tendency is to go to the lower energy states, to the minus infinite states, but there are no states available which are free, which are empty below this, and therefore how can it goes down? So it remains here. So this automatic collapse of the system leading to the infinite negative energy states at the end is not possible, is been restricted. So the system can be found in a stable way. So this actually prevents the collapse of the system. This entire discussion, this entire conclusion cannot be applicable to the bosonic system. Don't forget, for a bosonic system, there is no as such any restriction to be on the number of particles to be filled in the given state. So bosons can come to each other as many as possible in a given state. So this entire discussion cannot be applicable to the KG equation. So here, as I've said, we are restricting only the Dirac concepts of negative energy states which are applicable to fermions. But indeed, for the fermions, following the Pauli's exclusion principle, now that automatic collapse of the system can be prevented if we think that all the states below, that negative energy states, they are all completely filled. Not only that, it has another physical outcome, important outcome as well. For example, any particle or any system which has a positive in the positive energy states, and now if you slightly disturb, if you slightly uh, uh, perturbed it, then it will not go to the energy states unless and until there is a vacancy there, unless and until there is an empty state there. Opposite, if this particle in the negative energy state is given enough energy, for example, let's say it is at the edge of this, and if it is to be taken here at a positive energy states, then I have to supply the energy of 2 m0 c square energy. So only by providing energy to this, any of the system, any of the particles in negative energy states, so that they can cross over to this band gap or the energy gap, then and then they can come to the positive energy states. So what he further assumes, that all these negative energy states are not observable, but when it comes to the positive energy states, these positive energy states are observable. So system can give you the different physical quantities only when it has the positive energy. So all the systems in the positive energy states are observable. So in order to go from this non-observable case to observable, one has to give the energy at least equals to the energy difference or more. Correct? So this entire idea of redefining vacuum has not only prevented the automatic collapse of the system to the infinite negative energy state, but it is also suggesting in context to the law of conservation of momentum and energy, that in order to go from the negative energy states which are non-observable to the positive energy states is possible only when you supply the energy. So this law of conservation of momentum and energy is been also restored by this concept. Going further, that when the system goes from, let us say, from negative energy state to the positive energy states by providing the energy. So if I draw this figure again, just a schematic diagram, from this negative energy state, when the particle is taken to the positive energy state, somewhere here, correct, by supplying or giving this much of energy, either equal to or more than the 2m0 square, then what is left behind is the empty state, because the system is gone to the positive thing. This empty state, according to Dirac, is known as a hole state. And this hole or hole state behaves exactly as a particle. It is behaving exactly as a particle of opposite quantum numbers to this. So if I call as the particle, because particles are observable, and being observable they are in the positive energy states, whereas this whole state which is in the negative energy state, which is behaving also as a particle but with the opposite quantum numbers. So this holes or the whole state is now defined. They are defined with the opposite quantum numbers, and these quantum numbers can be even the charge as well. So if you consider this as the electron, for example, negatively charged particle, then this hole will have all the quantum numbers identical except its charge is behaving like a positive. So it behaves like a positively charged electron. And we know now that this electron and holes are actually, electron and the positrons are observed in nature. So whenever a system is taken from the negative energy state to the positive energy state, what it creates? It creates the pair of particles, correct? Particle and its antiparticle. So whole state or whole particle can behave or can be identified as the antiparticle of this observable. So Dirac idea is in a way is providing in a very automatic way the production of particles and antiparticles. And this particle and antiparticles together we call as the pair production. In our lower standard, if you just recollect, this kind of figure we come across that whenever very high energy gamma rays, for example, correct, is incident somewhere, and let us assume that this is a vacuum, then what happens? It produces the pair of positive and negative charge particles, and this we call as a, let us say, positron, and if we call as negative, then this is the pair production. So when I say gamma rays, means I basically mean the high energy ray. So this pair production is already known. So Dirac theory in that way is allowing the concepts of pair production. And in fact, we will see that higher the energy, larger is the chance of producing the particle and antiparticle. So the concept of antiparticle or the existence of antiparticle is being postulated by the Dirac theory. Since this Dirac theory admits the negative energy states, as a consequence of this negative energy states, this whole state is being defined. So this Dirac theory for explaining the negative energy state is also known as a Dirac hole theory. So this Dirac theory sometimes is also known as a Dirac hole theory. Lastly, we try to compare this all this discussion with KG equation. So now I focus on the negative energy state aspect from both Dirac and the KG equation point of view. Even in the KG equation also we have seen that the common feature of this Dirac equation and the KG equation is that they both prefer or actually deals with the many particle system. So the concepts of many particle and thereby the field theory is very automatic. Correct? Even in the case of KG equation also, this negative energy state is actually causing the issues to be explained. Correct? People have also tried to define KG equation by, as we have discussed here, by first ignoring the energy states. So even in the case of KG equation also, we can ignore negative energy states and allow only positive energy states. But again, the problem comes the same, that even you start with the positive energy state, but quantum mechanically it at the end allows the negative energy states. So that says that whenever you are writing, say, relativistic equation, either Klein-Gordon equation or whether you write the Dirac equation, it is indeed the equation which deals with the many particle system. So one issue that is common for both KG equation and the Dirac equation is that how can we apply this Dirac equation or the KG equation to one particle system. So this is another issue, and the last issue I apply that how this KG equation and Dirac equation can be applied to one particle system. In fact, when people, and let us say that KG equation, if we consider the first, then when you consider the particle, the bosonic particle under the action of, say, electromagnetic field, and we know that when this particle is moving, if represented as a wave, then this wave when comes and interact, then due to this interaction, this wave nature, wave describing your particle will undergo two processes. Either it can have, say, reflection or it can be transmission. I assume there is no absorption, the thing. So if we apply the Kg equation to a charged particle, of course it is a boson charged particle, and if this charged particle undergoes the interaction, then based on this interaction we can have the two phenomena possible. Of course, transmission and the reflection takes place, but based on this, now we can understand that if your interaction is a weak interaction, compared to its kinetic energy, the potential energy is very small, or if it is moderate, or your interaction is strong. We know that if we ignore any other possibility, if we ignore even the absorption, when the charged particle comes in the interaction zone or interaction region, then only two possibilities are there. It can either reflect or it can be transmitted. But this total of this reflection and the transmission coefficient is always a unity. What is found that whenever charged particle following Kg equation undergoes the interaction, in all three cases, whether the interaction is weak, moderate or strong, this R plus T equals to unity, that is fulfilled. So there is no doubt that the reflection and the transmission will be adding to the 100%, 1. In the case of weak interaction, this R plus T both are less than 1 and you have the total as a 1. So this R and T both are less than 1 and of course they are greater than 0. Sum is 1. In the case of moderate interaction, it is possible that R is very near to 1 and T is nearly 0, but again it comes out to be 1. Whereas in the case of a strong interaction, this is something interesting. In the case of strong interaction, it is possible that R can come negative and T can come largely greater than 0. So that again the sum comes out to be 1. But this is something against our understanding. How can a reflection be negative? You can have no reflection or you can have the 100% reflection or in between. This negative reflection coefficient is a dilemma to the scientist. So again this explanation, again this experiment suggests that whenever your charged particle following Kg equation undergoes the strong interaction, giving you the negative reflection coefficient can be explained only when that this charged particle is not a single charged particle, but if you consider the many charged particles, some of them are with the positive charge, some of them are the negative charge. Something like you have a particles and their charge point of view antiparticles. Then and then these negatively charged particles are moving in an opposite direction to the positively charged particles and thereby giving or leading to the negative reflection coefficient. So this type of small experiment has also suggested that the Kg equation, like Dirac equation, cannot be the one particle equation. It is applicable only to the case of many particle system made up of, as we were already discussed, a mixed type of charges, or it is made up of particles and antiparticles. So both on a common footing is treating the many particle system. And we know that the many particle system, whenever we have, let us say, like in the case of statistical mechanics, that where the ordinarily you come across a system of a few moles or the 1 mole, even in a 1 mole, there are about 10 to the power 24 number of particles. So it is a enormously large number of particles. So basically this high energy Dirac and Kg equations are favoring the statistical nature of the system. So there is a close link, close relation between the statistical mechanics and such a relativistic particle. So I conclude that the relativistic quantum mechanics favors many particle system. So in a sense, it favors the statistical nature of the system. But then still my problem is still there, that how can you apply, let us say, the Dirac equation to one particle system? Then, as we were discussing in the beginning, that concept like a second quantization of the field, that kind of concept is helpful in applying Dirac equation to a single particle case. we come across under this concept of second quantization the topic known as the elementary excitation. So for a one particle system, when you want to describe by Dirac equation, then the concept of second quantization, which leads to what we sometimes refer to as the elementary excitation, comes in. So there are definitely different mathematical ways of dealing with a single particle or the finite number of particle systems from this many particle theory. So basically this Dirac or KG are the relativistic field theories, but their application to the finite number of particles is also possible. So I stop for here. We are interpreting the negative energy states from Dirac point of view, and what he has proposed, the entire new definition of the vacuum and the concept of the whole state that emerges. And as outcome of this whole state, what we are actually postulating is the presence of particle and the antiparticles. And now there is no need to prove it because it is experimentally verified for the many through many experiments that indeed particles and antiparticles exist. So this is the great interpretation of the negative energy states and presence of particles and antiparticles. In the next, we in fact will prove that indeed Dirac theory is giving rise to the concept of a spin. So how spin automatically emerges due to the Dirac equation, that we try to say. So till then I think we can stop. Thank you. I believe when you definitely say yes to me that you must have enjoyed this, because how interestingly the Dirac idea in combination with the Pauli's exclusion principle could give you the understanding of negative energy states. We can also realize that this negative energy state has given birth to the very new concepts of what we call as the vacuum. Ordinarily, dictionary meaning of the vacuum means something totally empty is now being totally written in a different way by the Dirac, and telling that the vacuum means is something totally filled and nothing can be added further to it unless and until you remove something first. This idea has actually given us the new physical insight and has given us the birth of the pair production. If I just remember my 12th standard, then you know that the first time in the 12th standard we could realize that the concepts of the pair production that we have understood, the very energetic ray like a gamma rays when enters the vacuum, then it is divided into the positive and negative charges. And there, this is the first instance where we have seen that the energy bundle is split into the two particles. So the concepts of particle and antiparticle, that has actually been associated with the negative and the positive energy states. So this idea of a vacuum of which is totally filled, that's the brilliance of the Dirac theory. And based on this, we can also combine some of the constraints of the symmetry aspects of the quantum mechanics, that how such a fermionic particles, which are spin half particles, requires to be denoted by the antisymmetric wave function. Though we know it from our elementary quantum mechanics, but how it has been now coupled at the relativistic level. So all those aspects are actually emerging from this Dirac explanation. So with this, I think we can have enough understanding, at least at this level. We have enough platform to proceed further and to apply this Dirac theory to get familiarity with the different quantum numbers. In fact, that's the part we will be taking in the next lectures. But I hope you have enjoyed this lecture. So thank you so much for listening this.